The future of AI in fundraising starts here. The 2025 Fundraising AI Global Summit is coming, and it is going to be our best summit yet. Hi, this is Mallory Erickson, and if you want to stay ahead of the curve, register early to save your spot now and be the first to hear about speaker announcements, new sessions, and everything we have planned for this year's groundbreaking event. Don't miss your chance to be a part of the most important conversation on responsible AI in fundraising. Sign up today at fundraising.ai/summit.
The need for change in the fundraising sector has never been greater. But innovations in technology are evolving faster than our ability to understand them. Are these advances good or bad? Do they have unintended consequences? And what is the application to the global fundraising sector? That's what we're here to find out. Welcome to the Fundraising AI podcast, your up-to-date resource for responsible AI for the global fundraising community, hosted by Nathan Chappell and Scott Rosenkrantz.
Hey everyone, it's another episode of the Fundraising AI podcast. In fact, it's a special episode of the podcast. I'm here with Scott Rosenkrantz, who started this journey with me 50 episodes ago. Scott, can you believe we made it to 50?
Yeah, right around this time a year ago was when we started. It's been a fun journey so far.
And I can see I dressed up for the occasion, which wearing my t-shirt, Giving is Good, and you're wearing a tuxedo.
Dressed down with a blazer and a button up.
Right.
Going casual.
Yeah. I missed the memo. I'm thinking back at episode number 1 and 2 and 3, and honestly, I think they're probably entirely cringeworthy. So anyone who's been on this journey with us, thanks for sticking with us all of this time.
Yeah.
We were just, two guys talking about nerdy stuff, and we still are, but our equipment was bad, and we were just trying to get stuff out there because frankly, I think at the time you and I were getting so many emails and phone calls and text messages like, hey, what do you think about this new model? Or what do you think about so-and-so leaving, at the time, probably Sam Altman leaving, to go to Microsoft or whatever. And we're just like, well, why don't we just click record and put this out there and see what sticks? And I think if I reflect back on the last 50 episodes, we've had some amazing guests. Mm-hmm. We've learned so much. In fact, if we think about how the technology has evolved in those 50 episodes, it's insane because there are things that exist today that didn't even exist, like lots of things that didn't even exist 50 episodes ago.
Yeah. There's also been a lot of errors, right? We talked about some companies just messing up over and over and over again, repeatedly doing that over the past 50 episodes. But for me, I think what's been most exciting is being out in the wild and hearing people talk about it or say they listened to it or reaching out to us on LinkedIn. And we've been doing a really good job of tuning out the negative feedback. I don't know if anybody's saying that.
Right. We just don't listen to that. Right.
But the positive feedback has been great.
Nobody got time for that. No, it really has. And it's great to know that at least there's a few people out there that are continuing on their AI journey. Yeah. And I know we're not the only part of that journey, that they're taking this in and bits and pieces of it and taking other things in and really kind of moving forward. I think if I go back and project out 50 episodes ago to today, if there's any surprises that I have, and I think maybe one surprise would be, I would have thought we'd be further along in the safety conversation, and actually we're much further away from safety. In fact, it went the opposite way. I thought even when we started Fundraising AI that it might just be like a point in time. We do it once until kind of the universe catches up and was like, oh, let's, kind of make sure that we don't screw up humanity with this technology. And I think back in some of those conversations that you're just alluding to, companies that had missteps took them further away from safety. The arms race to scale AI has just gotten more significant. So probably shouldn't have been surprised about this at all. But in trade of that, in almost every single time we've seen huge advances in scale, we've seen decreases in safety to the point where obviously under new government regime, there's essentially no laws on AI governing AI right now. So on the federal level and on the regulatory level, there's much less out there on safety. But from a company's perspective, that just follows suit, right? And so we're just seeing so much effort put into scale and so little effort put into safety. And so I think that just makes our work more important. And I think our sector is specifically unique. And I think our superpower is that we operate in that currency of trust and that we're willing to hopefully condition ourselves that every week or every day or every second, we will ask ourselves, just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. And that looks very different for us than it does for Microsoft and Amazon and Google and Nike and AT&T, all the ones I talk about a lot, that uses technology to sell products or to get you to click in and do things. So in any case, was there any surprises for you that would have a year plus ago, you would have thought, we're going to be further along or this wouldn't have happened?
I don't know about surprise. I mean, I'm right there with you in terms of the safety and responsibility part of it. And I think on top of that, a year ago, we thought that we would have been further along, right? And the technology a year ago was baby versions compared to what we have now, right? So now the new text to video, the new voice capabilities like advanced voice mode, it's all the capability for deepfake is so much worse than it was a year ago. And safety and responsibility has been lagging even further behind. So it's just concerning, right? I didn't think that we were going to be in this position. So I'm hoping that this year, where things change for the better.
So what's your favorite advancement in technology in the last year as it applies to nonprofits, fundraising, whatever?
I'm really digging this new deep research. I don't know if it's going to, if I'm going to say it's my favorite over the last year, because it's been so many things, but top of mind right now, deep research is just amazing, right? That you can ask it one question. Usually like ChatGPT would come back in 3 seconds, and now it can take anywhere between like 4 and 15 minutes, depending on the complexity, and it provide like a fully compiled report for you.
Yeah. And I'll step back for people who don't know what deep research is. So ChatGPT, Gemini, and others have actually called it deep research. So it's kind of funny that deep research is kind of now embedded in most new models. It's a recent development in the last few months. All of a sudden, say in ChatGPT, if you're a paid subscriber, I think it might be available also to non-paid, but you might only get like very little use case or something out of it, is that there's a little button that says deep research. It looks like a little megaphone. And instead of just giving you its, wildest answer right away, it a lot of times will come back and say, hey, help me understand what you're trying to solve for. Like, can you answer a couple more questions about this? So I'm really clear on what you're looking for. And then once you've done that, maybe once or twice, it will say, okay, I'm going to go away for a little while and I'm going to come back and I'm going to give you the answer. And it can be as little as 2 minutes, but I've done a deep research project that took almost 40 minutes. And I mean, it was just depending on how deep the research was, how obscure the information was. But to your point, I mean, this changes prospect development forever, right? Because now it's like, I don't want to trust what's in Google and I don't want to trust in this one other thing. You don't have to. Deep research literally is going to focus on accuracy and it's going to source all of the documents and then it's going to compile. And what it does is it actually sets up tests for itself. So it's actually like ensuring that it's actually when it sees this information, it's validating that information and see new information, I'll validate that information to give you, in my case, a 28-page document that I was just testing this out with. And it was, let's say PhD level, but it was definitely consultant worthy. Like if I, was in the nonprofit seat, and which I was for many years, I would have hired a consulting firm and be like, hey, go away for a little while. Here's what I'm trying to solve for. Go away for a little while, do all your primary and secondary research, and then come back to me. And of course, they come back to me with a bill for like $40,000 and it'd be 3 weeks later. And it's like, here's what we found. I'm like, oh, okay, great. Like a lot of this I already knew, but some of this is new. And deep research, literally in 40 minutes for essentially free, did the like probably better footnoted version of that report where I could click into any little thing that I was like, oh, I'm interested in that sentence. Like, where did that come from? I want to look at that source. So I'd agree. I think deep research is a big, big move forward in just AI. The other part, I don't know, it's hard to even remember back a year ago, but you and I were writing a book a year ago called Nonprofit AI. And, we were starting to use generative to be like, hey, what should go in the book? And we came up with our own outline and we would test that outline with a generative outline. And it was like, oh yeah, there's a couple things that we missed. And like, oh, what would be really good analogies for this, or what structure would this look like? And to be honest, even a year ago, just a year ago, sounds like, it seems like forever ago, it wasn't really able to keep up. Like if you had even asked, generative AI then to write, I mean, heaven forbid you tried to write an article, but like, let alone a chapter, it's just not even remotely, it could do that. I would say, we finished our book. It's at the publishers now. We disclose our responsible beneficial use of AI, where we actually used it as this thought creative partner and to make sure we didn't have typos and test ourselves. And I mean, we used heavy doses of it because we didn't want to be hypocrites or write a book called Nonprofit AI and not use AI. But it was very limited in what it could actually do. Yeah. When I think about today with Agentic AI and where we're going in the very, very near future, like there'll be a time, I'll bet you by this time next year, that you could come up with a really good idea. Deep research will be like, okay, tell me more about your idea. Like what's really important to you? What style do you want it in? And it will come probably pretty darn close to actually writing an entire book for you.
Yeah.
I think that's 1 year away.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And I think we talked about this quote before, that it's going to take much longer to comprehend something than it is to create content. And we're right
Right.
at that point, right? Like that deep research, it probably took 40 minutes to read through the report, right? And it took 40 minutes to
Yeah.
create it. And then lasting questions you have after it, or where you want to go after that, like you probably have to go through that a couple of times. But I think we really are hitting that tipping point of so much is going to be able to come out, but what's the value in it? Is it just
Yeah.
content for content's sake, right? And how do we make sure that we aren't attributing to that, but what we're providing is actually valuable and utilized?
And this changes the rules of the game for all
Mhm.
businesses, nonprofit, for profit, for everything that we were taught growing up, which is learn to be a subject matter expert in your thing. And then you're going to rise up the ladder, you're going to go up and you're going to, be such a good expert in that field that people hire you for that purpose, right? Because you just have that depth of experience. And I think I've shared this before, but I was often self-conscious about not being a specialist throughout my career. Like people at a certain time, and the first time someone told me that, I actually was offended because I didn't know what it meant. But they're like, "Oh, you're a Renaissance man," and I was like, "Screw off! Like, what does that even mean?"
dare
And
you.
and how dare you? I was like, went home. I had to look it up because I was like so offended. Like, why did this person say this? Like, I'm pretty good at stuff. And and I look back at how generalists were just not taken as seriously. Like, I'm just like, I was never really, really good at one thing, but I was okay at a lot of things. And to that point of like, when content becomes free or nearly free, and we can produce it at scale, it's not your ability to produce content or do something in your domain expertise. It's about connecting dots. And Adam Grant had this really great quote that I've been using in a keynote about like the future belongs not to people who create new things, but those that connect dots. And I think to that point, the script is flipped. And for every curious generalist out there, like the world is your oyster. If you're a curious generalist, like I feel like there's nothing that's impossible at this point. And that's a super exciting place to be. To proof and point, our good friend Mallory Erickson, who is I would say, accidental then recovering fundraiser, who is a fundraiser, really didn't like it, and then decided to study why she didn't like it and studied brain science under a professor at Berkeley. And she is a generalist. I mean, she has a podcast called What the Fundraising. Everyone should check it out. She has a book called What the Fundraising and a methodology about how to stay motivated and how best practices in fundraising. She just launched a SaaS product, a full-blown technology product that took all of her general methodology about the brain science and it put it into a chatbot so that you can role play with it. And I'm allowed to say this because the press release went out last week because we've been holding this back for so long. But we have a world where a recovering fundraiser is now, in her case, actually a millionaire who's building this product that would have never been before possible. And then you have literally data scientists that are writing fiction novels. Like all bets are off. And I don't think I would have felt that way a year ago. I felt like a year ago, I've been like incremental changes and like, this is really cool. And we're getting better at doing things faster and smarter. But like, I'm at a point now where it's like all bets are off. The world belongs to the curious generalist. And that's a lot of people out there. And if they decide to point that imagination and that curiosity for good, I'd get really excited about what's possible.
Yeah, and I love that because like all you have to do is ask questions, right? And think about things. And a lot of times, like prior to the age that we're in now, just asking those questions, you might not move very far ahead, right? You might just be spinning your wheels because you're constantly asking. So now like you can actually turn that into something and have someone who will always bounce those ideas off with you and be able to create something of value within that context of what you're curious about.
Yeah.
AI is reshaping fundraising, and the responsible and beneficial adoption starts with a strong foundation. The Fundraising AI framework is more than a statement. It provides practical guidelines for integrating ethical AI into your organization's standards, business operations, and hiring practices. Whether you're building AI-driven tools or using them in your fundraising strategy, this framework helps ensure transparency, accountability, and impact. Read it, endorse it, and put it into action. Visit fundraising.ai/framework today.
Well, here's the thing though, right? Because you have a young one at home and there's a book, and I don't know, you studied psychology and for your master's. And so did you ever read the book, The Four Agreements by Miguel Ruiz?
Yep.
Okay, so like pretty much most people my age or your age like read this book at some point, and if you haven't, you should read
Yeah.
it. But I remember distinctly, I reread it a few times years and years ago, and it was basically this idea that we come out of the womb insanely curious. Like, and we essentially experience a world through touch and sound and sight. And we're constantly like testing boundaries of what's curious. And then essentially what happens, obviously, is that you become molded by your parents or your friends or society in general in wherever you were born, right? And you become a product of that. And I think the thing that's so interesting about curiosity, and I actually have a new keynote that is on called the Curiosity Code, is that we spent so much of our lives trying to tell people to keep their eyes on their paper. And me as a fundraising leader, like always, like I'm like, oh, this person's like way too curious. Keep your eyes on your paper. Like stay focused on your goal. We need to hit our goal. Like don't ask questions and don't reward questions as much as answers. This is like an entirely new world. Like my mind is just like completely like flipped and opened up to this idea that when you have a democratized technology that knows something about everything, and then you point that or allow people that are inherently curious and you foster this culture of curiosity, all bets are off. Like the coolest stuff can happen if we do this for good. And you and I both know the headwinds facing our sector are strong. Like we have tremendous challenges in our sector that what worked in the past will not work in the future. We can't do things the same way and expect a different result. Therefore, like it's like irresponsible for us not to. And this whole idea of like curiosity is so easy and so free, but it's like when you pick up a paper clip or you're like, what is this for? Like, oh yeah, I could put a couple pieces of paper together, or I could use it as a money clip, or I could pick a lock or whatever. To think about things that are routine for you, that you're just like, well, this is just like this ordinary thing, and unlearn those things so that we can inherently be curious. And I think with advances in AI today, where we're at with like Claude 3.7 just came out, GPT 4.5 came out, these tools are becoming really, really strategic, really, I mean, appearing to be empathetic. They're not actually empathetic, but they can appear they are. They can be amazing creative partners, but they can't wonder. And so I think that's this inherently human thing that we can do and that we can own like forever. I don't think AI will ever wonder on its own. And therefore, this is our inherent human superpower in this day. So I don't know, I'm coming into this from a year of like kind of fast progression, no doubt fast, but like I'm thinking an explosion of new opportunities and ideas.
Yeah. And I think two things I want to go with that. What this next year is going to look like, right? When we're at hopefully episode 100, what are we going to say looking back at this year? And I think we both are in agreement that this year is probably going to be agentic. We're already seeing a lot of that come out, right? With OpenAI's Operator. I don't know if you've played with that, but it's been pretty cool to play
No,
with.
but why don't you describe what agentic is? Because I think a lot of people either hear agent of AI or agentic AI, but they're not quite sure what that
Yeah,
means.
sure. So right now, if it's non-agentic AI or non-agentive AI, it's what you're using with ChatGPT, right? You ask it a question and you'll get a response back. But that output lives just within the context of that window, right? It's not taking action on anything. It's not doing anything. You have to execute anything else that you want to do with it, right? So it can walk you through how to run a query in Blackbaud, right? Or it can walk you through how to bake a cake. It can't do anything else. It'll just tell you how to do these things. Agentic or agentive AI can actually take action. Obviously, within the digital world, it can't bake that cake for you, but it can open up a browser. It can search for restaurants. It can book a reservation for you. It can book a hotel for you. It can go through all these different things. It can post to your LinkedIn account, actually take action and execute, where that's been a big limitation of generative AI so far. So we're seeing a lot of that come out now. OpenAI's Operator is a big one. Claude has computer usage that they came out with at the end of 2024. Perplexity, one of my favorite tools, is coming out with their own agentic browser in a little bit that they keep teasing. So what we're going to be able to do in 2025 is just going to explode. And we know that's how this goes, but I think it's going to be even more so with agentic.
This is a part of the technology that scares me because in a society of lack of regulation around AI at all. In fact, for those that follow this, so the UK has actually a responsible AI framework that certain types of AI are considered risky or have unintended risk or very risky if they're classifying people by race or color and things like that. So in fact, the model that you were just talking about, ChatGPT's operator model, is actually illegal in the UK. It actually is considered unnecessary risk, so it cannot be released there. Yet in the US, it's like anyone with $100 or whatever, $200 a month can buy it. And so I agree that this next year will be this untethered like race into agentic AI, because who wants to call up a restaurant and make a hotel reservation if your agent can just do it for you, or book an airline ticket? No one wakes up in the morning thinking, I can't wait to just try to figure out this whole airline debacle and which airlines go direct and whatever. Agents will be able to do that all for you. I worry about more than ever our sector, and with the headwinds that are facing the sector, that we are not evaluating AI against our values, and we'll take shortcuts to actually use these tools that will actually displace good human connection versus, friction that would be just, annoying human connection. So I think we're going to be tested as a sector. I think no doubt from a technological perspective, by a year from now, AI is going to look so different. It's already out, right? We're already there, and it's going to grow exponentially as it does, or double exponentially. In fact, because agents are creating agents, and it just gets wild. But I think we are, again, I think we've shared this on the podcast a lot, in the nonprofit sector in a different class, where we have to promote and protect trust at every stop. And that we have to condition ourselves literally every 30 seconds, like from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, just to say, just because I can do this thing doesn't mean I should. And it sounds easy, but it's hard. And until we actually condition ourselves and have accountability rings of like, what does the end use of this technology go? Yes, does it provide something really useful in the short term? That's awesome. But what does it do in the long term? If it provides something very useful and builds connection over the long term, then great. But if it actually does something in the short term, but does harm in the long term, then you have to, again, hold fast to like, what are we trying to solve? And is it aligned with our values? And so I guess all that to say is that I think technology will continue to advance at this rapid pace. And I think we're going to be tested as a sector more than we've ever been tested in light of all of the tremendous headwinds that are facing the sector today. I worry about the confluence of those things happening at the same time, because are we willing to compromise our values? Like, we don't really believe in this, but we'll just do it for the short term because we just had our federal funding, frozen or whatever it might be, and compromise our values there. So I think it's going to be probably a year of the most tested we'll ever be as a sector this year. I think for our resolve, our commitment to our mission, our commitment to our values, I think we are absolutely going to be tested, because we'll be presented with technology that will seemingly do things that will be really helpful, but maybe not good for philanthropy overall in the long term.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's all a great point, and really speaks to why fundraising AI exists, right? To be that kind of guiding light on, all right, how do we enter this new era? It's kind of uncharted territory. We need to have guardrails up and have people, speaking about this conversation. So for everyone who's been a part of Fundraising AI, from the committees, I mean, we have a wonderful representation on committees, helping us engage in this conversation and make sure we're getting perspectives from all over, right? To make sure that we are able to maybe not answer all the questions, but at least have some sounding board for how we want to navigate.
I think that's so good. And we can end on that. I mean, the reality is that the technology in itself, and you talk about tools a lot when you're presenting, you talk about a hammer. It can be used to hang a beautiful picture on the wall, or it could be used to actually harm someone. We won't get graphic there. But we're be presented with both opportunities. The tool itself doesn't know the difference, right? So it's how much faith do they have in the human race? This is what, to your point, Fundraising AI was created to, not to promote, to be very clear, not to promote the use of AI, but to promote the responsible and beneficial use of AI. So things that are helpful in the short term and the long term. And that's essentially the genesis of our book. And the entire book is framed by using AI in both responsible and beneficial ways, otherwise not to use it, but where it can be used in responsible, beneficial ways, like in HR and program development, program evaluation, and of course, fundraising. The book goes throughout the entire, kind of nonprofit ecosystem, if you will, and highlights ways that AI can be used both responsibly and beneficially, and then shares a lot of use cases. So I was super excited this week. We just launched our social media campaign. The book doesn't come out till May 6th, but we already ended up number 1 in the new release section of Amazon under the philanthropy category. And we ended up number 25, which we just found out today, in the AI category, which is very, very big and broad. Like, that was kind of surreal. The only nonprofit book in the top 100, by the way, in that category. So kudos to you. I think it's really, it's pretty awesome to be able to see that. And I think the momentum will continue.
Thanks to everyone who's been supporting that so far. And also, we gave a select group of people access to the book in its digital form, and just been getting such incredible endorsements. I mean, it's really been exciting to see the value that people are receiving from this. So Again, thanks to everybody who's been a part of
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah. No, for sure. So much. I think that we're just the vessel for all of those voices. And so many people, I mean, I think we had 30 something endorsements from Charity Navigator to Global Citizen to Giving Tuesday and all the way down the list. And every one of those people in those organizations shaped our views on this over the last few years. So yeah, I think that is kudos well deserved. Well, Scott, congratulations on episode 50. I think, they said it couldn't be done, but we are stubborn and we persevered. And more so, we still have 1 or 2 people following us, I think, after 50 episodes now. Actually, I think our follower base is growing pretty well. And it's been super exciting and fun to do this with you. So I look forward to another 50 and continuing to help inform the nonprofit sector on how to navigate this change in ways that are going to be additive for humanity overall.
Yeah, likewise. It has been a lot of fun. Here's to another 50. And thanks for everybody for joining us on this journey.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
AI is transforming the nonprofit sector, and we're proud that the Fundraising AI podcast is leading the conversation on how to use it responsibly. Together, nonprofit leaders, fundraisers, and changemakers are looking for ways to apply technology ethically, and we're here to help guide the way. Want to connect with our incredible audience of forward-thinking professionals? Sponsoring the Fundraising AI podcast is the perfect way to showcase your commitment to responsible AI and social impact. Join us in shaping the future of AI and fundraising by emailing hello@fundraising.ai to learn more about sponsorship opportunities today.